we have to distinguish the incoming really significant results related to a university network. It is a European network whose name is Ulysseus. And the basic idea is to conjugate 5 different European universities in order to result in proposing a sort of common university for the citizens of the future. Next slide, please. Okay, sorry. Let us focus our attention on the co-fund projects and explicitly on CLOE proposal. Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions provide different type of actions. One of these type is the co-fund action, which exactly provides funding for regional, national, and international programs for training and career development through co-funding mechanisms. We have both doctoral and postdoctoral programs. I decided to present exclusively doctoral programs since CLOE is one of these. Doctoral programs offer research training activities to allow doctoral candidates to develop and broaden their skills and competencies, and will lead to the award of a doctoral degree. From the administrative point of view, we have a special situation, since these students are considered PhD students, but they are recruited as they were early stage researchers. From this point of view, they are treated from the financial point of view very well and better in comparison with conventional PhD students. In the call, which was performed in 2020, 44 projects were co-founded all over Europe. Our project was the second of the 3 Italian projects that were selected at that time. Okay, now it works. Some figures related to CLOE distinguishing elements. The duration is 5 years, starting from April 2021. The project total costs are around 2.5 million euros, which are financed and supported around 50% from the European Commission, and the other support comes from Compagnia di San Paolo, which is a very active bank foundation supporting a very, very high number of projects which are presently developed inside our university. And the University of Genoa, inside CLOE, recruits 15 early stage researchers. 6 of them are physically today present, which are respecting mobility rules of MSCA actions. So it is compulsory and obviously really welcome the collaboration with partner organizations which are located in Italy and all over Europe, which will allow early stage researchers to fulfill secondment and short visit requirements. If you are interested in deepen your knowledge about the project, you have the chance to visit the website and to collect additional information on the project and its developments. Finally, for what regards my contribution, which is the basic CLOE vision, we are trying to go beyond the usual academic disciplinary approach in evaluation and resource assignment. So the present rules is to divide knowledge in sectors, and we are trying to overcome this element. Basically, we would like to evolve towards multidisciplinary reward according to European and international way of thinking. So with regard to this point, Italy is back. Our idea is to change the Italian attitude towards research, especially from the financing point of view, presenting projects and obviously highlighting a new way of thinking which is presently developed and proposed inside European and international areas. Practically, we would like to produce PhD profiles with a comprehensive attitude towards a challenging global problem. In this case, namely the return to inland areas from all the points of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marco. And now Anna Stagno will present the content, I would say, the scientific part of the CLOE project.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for organizing this conference in the framework of the Transumare Festival, and I'm really happy for it because, as Barbara said, our project was not involved in the planning of the different biodiversity because it started later than this big Interreg program and all the related project or connected project. But the framework is the same, and I think it is not a case, but just a little pity that many of us are already involved in other conferences of the Transumare Festival, and for the reason they are not present here, because we all are working on different topics related to the mountain and rural areas and to the possibility to plan a sustainable development and sustainable conservation for their heritage, because this is one of the main problems we are dealing with. Oh, sono bravissima. And so, yes, I'm sorry, my English is very bad, mostly in comparison with the one of Marco, but in our partnership, I am the cause, he is the part more precise and perfect. I'm just something like crazy.
Well, I'm the arm, she's the brain.
No. Well, what was the problem that we have in mind when we started to plan this project with Marco, Andre Christian, and the other colleague Barbara, and the other colleague with whom we wrote the project? That was that we were already working on different elements of the problem that are affecting rural and mountain areas that are depopulated, abandoned, and there are many elements that are the effects of this depopulation and abandonment in sense of the hydrogeological instability, wildfires, losing of the natural and cultural heritage due to the abandonment of the agroforestry pastoral activity, who helped to build the particular biodiversity of the open areas and of the semi-natural ecosystems. And so we thought that from one side, there was a need to start from an historical perspective, because if you continue as in many cases, to address just the consequences of the phenomena, but not to understand the intimated connection between phenomena, which were the process with oh, sorry, I'm going too fast. Which led to the present situation. It was not possible to address the question. We started from the consideration that many money were invested by the European community through the communitarian agricultural policies and through other measures to help a future, to build a future for mountain and rural areas. But the problem was that many questions were addressed in a separated way, so the economic problems were dealt independently by the social one, and the environmental problems were addressed without considering the economic dimension of the agroforestry pastoral activity, but just in the sense of conservation. And so this is what we consider, and this is something that scholars know, but then the problem is how to make not only a research topic, but a way to plan something, to pass from the theory to the action. What was the problem? That we already know that if we do not consider the question of territorial justice, and so of the economic sustainability of agroforestry pastoral activities, if we are speaking about mountain areas, but also that in the history of the human beings, agroforestry pastoral activity were not enough to make a sustainable economy for local communities, because the history what show us is that without other kind of income, it is not possible to live on mountain. So the bet that was in some way taught to help the economy of mountain areas, rationalizing the agroforestry pastoral activity and make them more productive, was something that was wrong. Now we know it. Now we have the ecosystemic service that speak about this question. But for many years, after the Second World War, the idea was that it was necessary to modernize the mountain economies and to modernize, to make more intensive the exploitation of mountain areas, but it is not possible. The question is that we have to add something else and to think about the complexity of the phenomena where the environment is not, it is not possible to divide the environment and the economic question and the social question. And so we have also to think about the heritage, because now we have many topics about heritage, the Landscape Convention, the Farm Convention, the UNESCO immaterial and material heritage is something that day by day is more and more important for the European community, for the European citizenship. But of course, it is not possible just to think about the heritization processes. It is a very difficult word for me. Starting from the idea to conserve the past, to preserve the past as if it were an heritage. We have to plan a future without coming back to the past, but maintaining what is important for us and for, above all, for local communities, rural dwellers, important to preserve. And of course, in this, I am an archaeologist, it is important to preserve also the historical evidence of the past, because it's something that is valuable for our sensibility. But of course, it is necessary to come to the future in another way, and of course to find a way to stop the abandonment and to find a way to make sustainable the life and desiderable, to make
Likely.
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 The life in rural areas, that is something that is not so easy. And so, as I have already said, what we want to do, it is to build new paths in the disciplinary research that help to connect and to connect and reconcile the different phenomena that are affecting, and that are also not only affecting, because there are many, many interesting processes that are happening in rural areas in the question of the new incomers, the new rural dwellers, and in the question of a shared idea that is not only of the inhabitants, but also of the other people, that it is necessary to make something and we see it very well in Liguria, to stop the abandonment and to make possible to live in rural areas as if we were in town, because the question is that is a question of the territorial democracy above all. And so what we thought about it, that it was necessary to try to do it. And why we thought it in Genoa? Because as I already said in the beginning of my presentation, we were already working on this problem, but in an independent way. And what was the bet of CLOE is not to make a big project with everything inside, but to maintain the disciplinary perspective. And well, the disciplinary skills, the need to have disciplinary skill, competencies, and paths, but in a wider framework that is interdisciplinary. So we could, when we work on our topic, on our discipline, we are able also to think in a wider way. And so it is possible to build this new generation of scholars and of policymakers, of people who will work for the future of rural areas, that will not think just a problem in a separated way with the other one, because in many cases it's just a question to not be used to think widely. We are all able to think in a complex way because the life of each one of us is complex, and we have many separated dimensions that we try to interconnect: the family, the work, the too much work we are doing at the same time. And so the same is the life that we are dealing with when we make research. The question is to have the skills also to be able to manage this complexity. And this is one of the main reasons for which we taught CLOE to build paths inside the disciplines and to make connection between disciplines. And this is, I have a strange idea of the aesthetic, and so I'm not sure this is nice or bad, but this is the space, the empty space between the square are the possibility to make paths between disciplines and to make new connection between disciplines. And these are not just disciplines that I put in this slide, but are all the disciplines involved in CLOE. And so you could see how complex it is to manage and how many people are involved in. And this is, I think, one of our I think that it is very interesting, this experiment of merging, because we have very, very seemingly far disciplines involved, the political philosophy and the history of contemporary art and electric engineering. But if we think about rural areas and the problem of territorial justice, and we think about electric engineer, we know that without energy we cannot live in a place. And now mountain areas have big problem of energy supply, because there are no more maintenance of the old network, and this is a problem, and it is a not already addressed problem, and this is for the electric energy power, and also for other kind of energy. And I could continue, but I don't want to bore you with this. I really love to make connection, but I think that every one of us could think connection between disciplines. And how we thought to do it, because the question is, you could make a new PhD course, but a new PhD course managing all of this, it is not possible, because the risk is to lose the disciplinary competence. And this is the equilibrium between the need to grow as scholars in a discipline, because the skills to make research should be disciplinary, but with this wider framework. And so we connected different already existing PhD PhD courses. And we try to taught different topics in each course that could be a bridge with the other courses, and that make possible to reflect from different disciplinary perspectives to the same problem. And how we plan it? We plan it in a complex way that we are starting to address with the PhD students that are already involved in CLOE, that are the alternation between courses, seminars, workshops, and conferences like this one, that will be the moment in which we will build together the interdisciplinary perspective, while courses will help to grow as disciplinary scholars, and of course through their research, that is the main object of each PhD fellowship. And we will do it not only as we are in a co-fund, Maris Klobodowska-Curie co-fund project, and we are building not just a new generation of scholars, but a new idea of interdisciplinary research that is building around Europe through different projects that are promoted by the European Commission through the Marie Curie fundings. And this is one of the things for which we are not alone to make it only in Genova, but we have a wide European partnership that come from different different part of Europe, and I think only from Europe, because we were thinking in an European perspective, and I will say something about it later. And of course, our PhD student will have the opportunity also to have co-supervisors that are not from the University of Genova. So we are building something really complex that is we have already not started to manage it, and I'm not sure if we were able to be all in presence in the same place in some way, but it would be really nice. So the question is not being alone, because we are in Genova and we have our also geographical perspective, because it's something that we are not so used to think about it, but each country has a different way to address the same research. So this European perspective is very important to make possible that opening that we said before. And then not being alone, because of course, when you make a PhD fellowship, the idea is to make research, but it is always, of course, obvious that maybe not all the people who will make a PhD course, even if a PhD will remain one of the most important part of their life, will become scholars in the university, because there are too much, I think that we have to say it, there are really a lot of PhD opportunities in the world at the moment. And so the idea of the European Commission is not to help also the intersectoriality, so to not focus just in research. That is something really important for the CLOE project, because of course, when you think about the possibility to contribute to plan a sustainable future for rural and mountain areas, the idea is not to remain close in the academia, but to stay in the rural areas, to stay in the reality and to live the problem. And so for this reason, more maybe than in other cases, this is particularly important, the possibility to make secondment outside the academia, but with no academic partners that are from, also, if we thought about a disciplinary perspective, also these are different from institutions related to the heritage conservation and the natural heritage conservation, to the social democracy, and so on, to institutions at all, like the some municipality, and also the organization of local farmers. And one, not the last nor the least, but one of the main important elements that sometimes we forgot is to have a strong organizational structures. And in this slide is important to underline that University of Genova, we are really stressing the University of Genova because we were not aware of the complexity from a bureaucratic point of view of our challenge, but it was very complex. But we have with Laura Mario Marchese, that he's the delegate, thank you, delegate for the doctoral courses at the University of Genoa, and all the administrative staff of many sector offices, department of the University of Genova, many people is involved to make possible to have this project and to make it working. And so it is something that is important to underline in this, because sometimes when you make research, you think that just the research is important, but this kind of project, without the organization, without the European Research Office, the PhD course office, and the other office, and the help of people who are supporting our research, it was just not possible. And this is something that is very valuable, because what we are doing is also to connect offices and persons, and maybe it will remain later than our project. That is also one of the aims of this kind of big project, so challenging. And so, how to come to the conclusion? I don't know.
It's okay, no problem.
Okay. We, as I said, because of course the focus are not the organizational question or the supervisor, but are the PhD student to whom we are proposing to work on some topics and to work together but independently and collaborating on some topics. We thought about the present problems of rural areas in an historical perspective, and considering the environmental one, the question of social demography, the legal question, because there is some problem related to the ownership, to the right of access to resources that are really important. And we cannot address the problem of mountain areas without considering also this legal dimension. And so we identified 4 closely related topics, and I don't want to bore you describing them in details. You could find them in the website, and you could read something about it. One of the main, because is something that more and more, day by day, we are identifying mountain areas as place of the heritage, the natural heritage, the cultural heritage, the ideal memory of the past, an ideal and very vague memory of the past. And but this is something that we could say not living there. And so there are many questions around heritagization processes that we have to consider. Also, asking us who is the owner of the heritage, who has the responsibility of the heritage, which are the dialogue between institutions and local communities. And then the other that seems and is really correlated to the first, but it is from another perspective, are the conflicts around the management, the future of rural and mountain areas, because these conflicts still exist. And there are many levels of conflicts and many levels of negotiation that we have to consider in their complexity and to be able to consider together and independently. And so also in this case, an historical dimension is needed. And then the question that I said before, that, okay, mountain areas, European mountain areas are really abandoned, but there are many processes that are of people who is coming back to mountain. And they are not the original rural dwellers, are other people, newcomers. And there are many young people. Our PhD student last Friday were involved in a round table at the School of Heart, Emilio Sereni, that is making a course in Genova Voltri in Villa Pallavicini. And they were involved in this round table with some future local farmers or already present local farmers who want to understand something more, to have a more complex idea of what they could do and they are doing as rural farmers. But they are not people that were born in the place that now they are planning their life. And so there is also a question of the generation that are changing and the people that are coming. And there is a problem that we should consider also by the point of view of the legal framework and what it is possible to do to make possible to live there, and how could be the law the way to promote a new bottom-up model for rural population. And also, in this case, the question is to start from a local perspective that is not the generic idea or some theoric, but to start from case studies, to start from the living, the real existence of the people, and then to make general idea. And the first, that seems more far farther from the other, but is really related, is the question of the environmental risk. That is something really important now for the question of climate change, that so we cannot no more delay our thinking about environmental risk. And also in this case, what environmental engineering are seeing that it is day by day more needed to consider the temporal processes, the temporal scale of the processes in the planning of the mitigation of the risk. And then finally. So these are the 4 correlated problems that we are trying to address from the different disciplines. And after my presentation, and maybe some small break we will have after my presentation.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. We will start to speak with them. These are the topics we are dealing with, and where we will do it. And it is a quite obvious consequence of what I said, that we don't want to think in theory, but to face with the reality. And so also because we live it in Liguria, but it is not the only question, that Liguria is a perfect laboratory area, because many of the phenomena that then became generalized in Italy and also in Europe, in Liguria happened before. It was in this way for the population of mountain areas, and in the process of the industrialization of Liguria, that was one of the first deindustrialized region in Italy. And we have the higher percentage of tree-covered areas in Italy, and they are too much, and they grow due to the abandonment. And this is causing strong hydrogeomorphological instabilities. But we have also many common lands, many natural parks, various UNESCO World Heritage sites, and we have, what I said before, many promising processes of return to mountains, of coming back to mountains. And so we could also have case studies to focus on this problem. And so in this way I will conclude that when we were planning our project, we were thinking about an European perspective, because we were thinking to something funded by the European Commission. But now we are in a global framework, thanks to the PhD students that come from different places in the world, and they are making their research in different parts of the world, and they will compare the research outside Europe or outside Italy with the ones made in Liguria. So it's very interesting, because we have now, the luck is that our idea was good, but the further challenge is that now the complexity is at the global level. So really thank you for your kind attention.